In this lesson, we'll learn how we can color our cartoon duck using the paint tools and the color art mode. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so now that we have applied all of our line work to the different pieces that make up our cartoon duck, we can begin adding color. So I just wanted to kind of point out over here in our color view that I've already created some swatches over here that we can use to color our character. And so basically, to make a swatch, which is what we did actually in our second lesson when we were making that swatch to sketch with, all you got to do is select any swatch over here in your color view, hit this button right here, this plus button. That'll duplicate that particular swatch. You can double click on it, and then you can basically choose whatever color you want. You can even go into multi-wheel mode where you can get a little bit more detailed with refining the color in regards to hue, saturation, value, and your RGB. Okay, and of course, to simply delete a swatch, you can hit this little minus button right there. Okay, so we've got some different swatches here that I've made. Basically, I've titled it Feathers. That'll basically be the skin color. I got a lighter version of that, and then a color for the eyes, darker version for just kind of some darker areas of the skin, and then of course for the beak and the feet. Okay, so now we can go ahead and talk about modes once again. If you recall from lesson 3 when we began adding line art to the head, I talked about how we want to be in our line art mode. So just to reiterate, once again, think of these modes as kind of like layers for each one of your individual layers. So on our hand 1 layer, which is right there in the drawing view, we basically have our line art on a separate layer for that layer. We want to be able to separate our color on its own mode or own layer, if you will. That way we can just have a little bit more control. If we want to come in and modify our line work, we don't have to worry about messing up the color that we've applied. Now, you don't have to do this. You can simply fill in your color right on the line art mode if you choose to. But again, if you want to have just a little bit more control and keeping those separate, feel free to try this out. Now, in order to do this, we need to basically prepare this line art and create some invisible lines to be placed on our color mode. Okay, so if we click on this right now, we don't see anything. There's nothing there to fill. So if we go back to our line art mode, we can use our selection tool, select this hand, and then hit this button right there. Okay, so now if we go back to our color mode, and then we hit D, we can actually reveal those invisible lines right there. So we have something now to fill with color. And of course, if we hit this button here, we can preview both. So let's go ahead and hit D to hide those invisible lines. Now, I've basically gone through all of our different body parts, all of our different layers, and already done this just so we can save a little bit of time in this lesson. So if you're going to take this route, be sure to go through all the different layers of your character that you're working on and basically select it and hit this button right there, which basically creates color art from the line art. Okay? All right, so with that said, we want to come over here and grab our paint tool right there. And I'm going to go ahead and select Feathers. This will basically be his skin color, really. And let's just zoom in here, and we'll go ahead and color his hand, just these different parts of his hand right there. And so, again, we have those separate. Go ahead and hide our stroke there on our line mode. So that's pretty cool, I think. Really great feature in Toon Boom. We'll go ahead and work our way up our layer stack. So working on the lower arm, basically, and that's where that invisible line really comes in handy in just making that nice transition of color. We'll go ahead and kind of look at all this once we finish coloring in our camera view and see it all composited together. So just working our way around, we'll now focus on the body. And I'm going to go ahead for his shirt. Let's just use red. I think that'll look nice. And of course, I want the neck to be green. Go ahead now and focus on the head, just working our way up the stack of our layers here. We'll go ahead and fill in the head there. And then for our eyes, let's go ahead and collapse his tool properties. I have a yellow over here that I've prepared. I think that'll look nice. And then the cheeks, I kind of wanted to have like a lighter color for the cheeks to kind of separate them. And then the beak, I'm going to use the same color for both the beak and the foot. And then these eyebrows, I'd like them to be a little bit darker just so they can stand out, and you now have the option to kind of convey a little bit more emotion with those eyebrows. Okay, looks like we're on one of the feet now. Let's work our way down here, just zooming out, hitting control equals to zoom back in. Fill in the foot there. And then our lower leg 2, we'll go ahead and fill that in. And then our upper leg 2. Great. And then foot 1. And then just working our way up the opposite leg here. Filling that in as well. Now, I do want to kind of point out something that you may be running into at this point. If one of say these legs or say these arms isn't filling in, especially on the ones where you added the invisible line, let's go ahead and hit D real quick on our keyboard, okay? And we'll go ahead and turn off our preview. And here you can see basically the vector strokes, if you will. And there's that invisible line that we drew, okay? So if it's not filling in, that means somewhere this line, this invisible line you drew, is not connecting to the vector lines that basically come with those pencil lines that you drew right there. So all these blue lines need to connect. So for whatever reason they're not connecting, you want to grab your contour editor tool, and you could come over here to your tool properties and try this button right here. That'll basically allow you to grab the points from that invisible line. It'll snap them to those other central vector lines. So that's something that you may run into at this point. Sometimes it's hard to make sure when you're actually just doing your line work by itself, and then you get to this point and you're wondering why it won't fill. If your color won't fill, there's a gap somewhere. Okay? Let's go ahead and finish coloring our character. So we're going to work our way up through the stack. We're going to go ahead and get his upper arm, and again, that's all one piece right there that we're going to be able to rotate on the body. And then the lower arm, we basically want to go ahead and use that same skin color, and the hand as well. And then we'll go ahead and let's see, it looks like we're missing the upper arm 1 right there. We forgot to add red, so we'll go ahead and drop that in. And let's zoom out now, hitting Control minus. And it looks like the only spot left that we really need a color is that hand 2. So let's go back through our layer stack here and find that hand 2. We got a little spot right there that we need to fill. Okay, great. Okay, so it's kind of hard to see everything fluidly in the drawing view right now, okay? Especially even if we have the light table turned off, we're only going to see that layer that we're on. So let's go ahead and jump over to the camera view where we can see basically all of this composited together. And so there you have it. Now I'm noticing something here with just the arrangement of our layers in this hand 2 right here. Let's go ahead and just drag that below lower arm 2 just so we can see that nice continual flow of color. We don't have those overlapping lines that basically make him look like a puppet. I am seeing that right there with that leg. And so let's go ahead and find that lower leg 2, which I believe it's going to be upper leg 1 right there. Okay, so we want to basically pull these behind the body. Now this is subject to change once we get into actually setting up kind of a hierarchy arrangement, okay? But just for the sake of looking at everything, let's go ahead and actually expand this up. Just for the sake of being able to see everything clearly, I'm going to drag that below the body, okay? All right, now let's zoom out, and we can now see basically how we want our character to look now that we've got him colored. Now again, the arrangement of a lot of these layers will change once we start setting up a hierarchy arrangement and parenting some of these different pieces together. And we're going to talk about that in a later lesson, and how we can kind of fix any issues where we have some pieces popping out in front or getting pushed behind and starting to look awkward like it did with that leg. But we'll discuss that before the end of the course when we get to setting up a hierarchy arrangement. Okay, so in our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and shift gears a little bit. Now that we've got basically our character built, I'd like to talk about creating drawing substitutions, okay? And that was one of the things I mentioned early on when I was talking about keeping a lot of these little things separate, like the hands, obviously, and the beak and the eyes. We want the ability to be able to come in and switch those different pieces out with a different drawing substitution, okay? And so we're actually going to focus on one of the hands. So stick around and we'll see you in the next lesson.